Yeah, welcome everybody to the third week of this course within Sangonite, which I've been calling Anatomy of Awareness. Yeah, I suppose the idea with that title was just to give some notion that perhaps we can explore the nature of awareness. And I've been using the term awareness rather than mindfulness, and I'll say in a moment to say a little bit more about why that is. But first of all, I'm just going to recap us a bit on what we've been doing up to now in this course. So yeah, we could say it's an exploration of awareness, if in fact we can really truly explore awareness, or if awareness really has any kind of definite nature that we can pin down. But even if that's the case, good to know that. On the first week, I introduced the idea of awareness as something that's already here. So this is arguable because, we seem to kind of move in and out of awareness. So sometimes when we feel more aware, like if we're having a good meditation and, you can feel what's going on in our big toe and it's all very clear. Other times we feel like we're a long way from awareness. But in another way, awareness is always here accompanying our experience. You could say if we didn't have awareness, we wouldn't be able to experience anything. What is it we are experiencing things with it, as it were? And the Buddha talked about there having to be three things there for experience to take place. So there's the subject in the form of sensory experience, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, that we get in the Heart Sutra, as well as an object, so sounds, tastes, things touchable, whatever, the body, all those things that correspond to those different senses. And then also there needed to be a consciousness there that's experiencing it. So that's the part that we're exploring, really. We're exploring that consciousness part. And I said about, so I said about the awareness just being there, that it was like the sun. You wake up in the morning, you can hear things, you can smell breakfast, hopefully, you can light coming into the room. And like the sun, awareness lights up everything, and it does it indiscriminately. So awareness itself doesn't distinguish about our experience. We don't choose not to hear a sound. We don't actually choose not to experience a thought. We could sort of think we can, but actually thoughts just arise. Sometimes there's lots of thoughts there. Sometimes perhaps when we're absorbed in meditation, there's not many thoughts there. Just as sometimes we're not experiencing much in the taste front or experiencing much on the sound front if it's quiet. And awareness is also it's effortless in a certain way. So I know we said this thing at the beginning that awareness seems to sometimes be there and sometimes not. But in a way, we don't actually have to make an effort to hear anything. We just hear things. We just see things. It's not like we get up in the morning and in order to see the light coming into the room, we've got to sort of crank some sort of inner machinery up to get going and make an enormous effort just to see light. But awareness does seem to become obscured. And what does it become obscured by? Well, it's obscured by what's in Buddhism is referred to as veils, varanas, and they are in the original language. So there's veils of thinking, and there's veils of what are called klesha, or emoting, which is, all our psycho-emotional stuff, you could say. Klesha, the word klesha, which comes, appears to describe what I'm talking about here in the original text, means something like defilements, which is rather a kind of heavy word. But it also says that they're adventitious defilements. So I don't know if you've come across this word adventitious before. I had to go and look it up when I first came across it. Adventitious means that they're not inherent. There's something that's kind of overlaid on experience. So that's rather encouraging, I think. It's saying that our natural state, awareness or being in its pure state, is only defiled in an adventitious way. So the actual nature is never really touched by those defilements. I mean, another way of talking about defilements is we could say that we're under a kind of hypnosis, like being in a dream. And Buddhist texts right throughout, well, in texts in other traditions as well, often use this analogy of a dream, that the unawakened state is like a state of dreaming. I quite like hypnosis, because I think hypnosis suggests that we've sort of been intoxicated with something, and I think this is very true. And we become intoxicated by, I would say, by a mechanism which I touched on last week, and the mechanism is that of the separated and divided self. So at some point, in our experience from being a baby, we go from this undivided state into this divided state. We start to split our experience and the world up. We do this primarily with language. We learn, first of all, that, we have a name. And so we attach to that name all sorts of experiences, all sorts of thoughts. And then we start to have thoughts about this supposed being here and what it's like. And a whole picture, gets built up. But from the point of view of the awakened mind, that whole picture is purely imagined. It's purely dreamed. It's not actually the way things are. So in meditation, one of the ways that we see these kleshas, which is part of the veil that's obscuring the direct seeing of reality from us, manifests as the hindrances. So this is another list that the Buddha came up with as broad categories of the way the mind obscures things. So we're probably quite familiar with this list. I think we probably teach it at some point on the intro course. But just to recap, so we have craving, we have aversion, we have doubt and indecision, we have restlessness, anxiety, and we have sloth and torpor. They're a lovely bunch. So they're ways that the mind, or the energetic sort of formation of our mind, tends to go. And you could see them also as contractions. I quite like this way of seeing them. because although they're mental, we also experience
It's all gone weird.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, you were repeating experience endlessly, Naravira, which was quite an experience, actually. I don't quite know what happened there. That was really weird.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, it seems okay now.
I've got two mic. I'm trying to use the microphone, this microphone here, which isn't the computer microphone, and I think for some reason it suddenly switched microphones. That's probably what happened.
Uh-huh.
Okay. But as long as you can still hear me, I'll
Yeah, it sounds fine now.
despite the technology. Okay. So what was the last thing that you heard, Taiwanita?
Experience.
Not
Energetic contractions. Did we get that far?
pushing all the time.
I'm now getting Francis.
I think I remember energetic contractions, yes.
Yes, energetic contractions. Okay, so yes, one way of talking about the hindrances, they don't just appear mentally, they also appear in the body. And I think I quite like the way of talking about them as energetic contractions. So awareness, our being has contracted around these different things. So I'm not going to say loads more about the hindrances at the moment. Yeah, so where are we? And actually, you can think about in meditation, you can think about these contracted states and work with them directly. So I'm just going to share with you a little diagram that I did some time ago. It's called the energetic approach to the hindrances. So hopefully you can see that. There's a person there sitting cross-legged with some arrows coming out of them. So that's us in meditation. I think we might have done this, I might have introduced this actually during the meditation last week. So we sit down to meditate and we take stock of where things are at. And we can experience the hindrances in a much more sort of bodily, energetic kind of way, rather than, thinking about them and asking the question which one I'm in. We can also explore them more within the body, more energetically. So you could see the hindrance of desire, craving, as an energy that wants to pull oneself away from just being here. I often think about this in terms of sitting down to meditate. What's happening in this moment? Is there any sense of not wanting to be here? It's quite a good question, I find. And it can open this up, what doesn't want to be here? Does the energy want to kind of pull forward? I kind of want something that's not here in this experience at the moment. Or does it want to kind of push away from experience? It's as if there's something here that it doesn't want and it wants to kind of push back from that experience, which would be the basic push-pull, craving going out and aversion pushing back. And you can experience that, I think, on the bodily sort of felt way. The other two, so you've got restlessness and anxiety, the energy tends to be going very up. So there's a lot of thoughts going on with restlessness and anxiety, and the energy is very kind of high. And you know that when people when we get in the anxious state, for instance, something like a panic attack, breathing becomes tight and there's constriction, and the energy is traveling in an excited direction, sort of upwards. The opposite of that would be sloth and torpor. So, maybe there's something that doesn't want to be here at this moment, and it just want to escape into some kind of sleep, just sort of close down on experience. So the energy is moving down. Doubt and indecision tends to be more of a mental thing, and it sort of just revolves around in the head in circles. And along with that, there's a diagram here of energetic antidotes. So this is about, coming back into the body, coming back into the center. I mean, it doesn't have to be the heart, it could be just the whole body, but it's a movement sort of back to a centered kind of place, looking at these hindrances energetically. So if it's sloth and torpor, awareness needs to move up in the body. You can even take awareness quite high if there's a lot of sloth torpor, just sort of taking the awareness right up to the crown of the head. If it's restlessness and anxiety, to bring the energy down into the body, down to the hara, somewhere low in the body, helps to counteract. It's a bit like you're taking the energy out of that particular channel. If it's desire, to come back into the center. If it's aversion, again, just coming back into the center. Okay, so I hope those are helpful. So we're still actually on the recap here. Yeah, in week 2 we did an exploration of by looking to see in our experience whether the body, sensations, perceptions in the form of our senses, thoughts, feelings, emotions, if any of these things could be awareness. Or were all of these things that arose in our experience something that was arising, as it were, within awareness? And awareness was like the space in which everything arose. And an analogy for that would be, well, the traditional one is the blue sky. You've got the blue sky and the clouds coming across the blue sky. Another analogy would be like the screen, like the screen that's in front of us. So awareness is the screen, and everything that appears on the screen, objects, images, people, etc., are appearances within awareness, and that all of our experience is like this. And to try and see this in our experience, we had a look to see whether the different parts of our experience could be the ones that were being aware. So, for instance, could the sensate body become aware of sight? Could hearing become aware of thoughts? Could thoughts become aware of sensations? So we're looking in this way and looking to see whether there was something else other than these experiences of the senses, including the mind, that was the awareness. And then we even tried right at the end of that meditation on week 2 to, I think it was week 2, yes, try to become aware of, or see if we could become aware of awareness itself. So if awareness was the thing that was seeing everything, if it was like the screen or the blue sky, could we become aware of awareness. Okay, so that's the recap. Of course, there are lots of different angles that we could be exploring awareness from, and we've only got 4 weeks to do this in. This could take a lifetime if you carry on exploring it. But I wanted to focus today on one aspect of awareness that is, if you like, what's kind of available to us, or I've been calling it mobile or interactive awareness. So it seems that we can, direct our awareness to different parts of our experience. So, you sit down to meditate, maybe someone's leading it and they say, become aware of the soles of your feet, doing a body scan. And yeah, we're able to go to the soles of our feet. And we can take in, more and more of our experience like this. We can take in the body like this. We can take in emotions and feelings like this. We can take in our other senses and perceptions like this. We can even, in this way, it seems, take in thoughts, which is usually the most kind of subtle and evanescent part of our experience. But with sufficient awareness, we can become aware of the thinking, sort of aware of it arising and passing away and seeing it, as it were, like an object moving across this blue sky. So this is what probably, this is very synonymous to what we mean when we talk about mindfulness and mindfulness practice. I think I did explain, perhaps it was last week, in fact, why I didn't like mindfulness as a word, because it confuses for me the term mind with a small m with the term mind with a large M. And I think this is in my experience and knowledge of things, which is of course limited, generally it's a sort of crime committed across the Buddhist world that mindfulness with a small n and mindfulness with a large M are just sort of used indiscriminately without distinguishing between the two. So mind, I would say, with a small m, is what we've been talking about in terms of what obscures our experience. There's the mind as a mechanism, the ability to think. But there's an element or a patterning within that mind, many patternings within that mind, that are actually obscuring our experience. So you wouldn't want to become mindful in that way. You want to become mindful with the capital M, which I prefer to call awareness, to make that distinction. Okay. How are we doing? So yes, okay. So you could say mindfulness is the place where awareness interacts with our everyday minds. So mind with a big M, mind with a small m can interact. So we think, or the thought arises, become aware of the breath. And we can have, thoughts that are directed towards the meditation, like, that's the hindrance of such and such, is a thought arising. And it's thoughts that are helping us to go deeper with our meditation practice, as opposed to thoughts that are to do with the hindrances. So in terms of what we're going to do today, I'd like to come back to something I touched on last time again, which is the difference between, I think I touched on it last time, the difference between mentally constructed experience and what we could call direct experience. I think I said something about direct experience last time, but just to recap that. So what I mean by direct experience is experience from, as you like, from the point of view of awareness. What I mean by mentally constructed experience is that we're looking at our experience through the filter of our thinking in whatever way. So this is something that we can distinguish by doing some exercises to see this difference between mentally constructed experience and seeing directly from awareness. And well, why is this useful? Well, it's useful because to the extent that we're mentally constructing our experience, it stops us coming into a fuller experiencing, a fuller awareness. So yes, it's like, for instance, with the mindfulness of breathing, we can subtly mentally construct the breath. So I did this for many years when I was meditating. It's not that it doesn't actually sort of get you anywhere. It's just, in my experience, in the long term, it was limiting. In fact, I didn't really realize I was doing it until somebody pointed it out. So what do I mean by that? So somebody says, go to the breath. So to go in, breathe out. And in order to do that, we have to kind of get hold of this notion of breath. And usually we do that kind of visually and get some kind of idea, of the breath in that way. Anyway, I'm sort of preempting myself. Maybe what we should do actually, yes, let's just do that. Let's just do some exercises. It's much better to look at things in direct experience than have me describe them endlessly. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So let's do maybe a couple of exercises around this. Some of you may be familiar with this. You might have been in a class where I or somebody else was teaching this, or you might have been to Vajraloka where you might have come across it there. All right. You don't have to get super set up for meditation for this. So just relax and close your eyes. Probably better with the eyes closed. So it helps if we're a little bit settled. So we'll just be quiet for a minute or so. Just forget about everything that's just been said.
Naravira, I'm afraid you're declining into silence almost with your voice.
Am I? Yeah, this is a problem. How about now, Darman?
Wondrous. Thank you.
Okay, I'll get that a bit closer as well, I think. Okay. So yeah, just forget everything that's just been said. No need to think about it. Just take some breaths. Remember, you've got a body. So let's imagine an orange, as in the fruit. See if we can just notice what happens as we imagine an orange. So probably for many of us, when I say the word orange, as in fruit, we see something in the mind's eye. Hopefully orange in colour. Maybe texture, maybe some sense of something called roundness. So we're using sense representations to call to mind an orange. So the visual sense, maybe a bit of felt sense as well. We can get some kind of strange kind of idea, some kind of idea of roundness, perhaps from sensory memory. And we also might be able to get a sense of what an orange smells like. Olfactory memory is quite interesting. If you've ever had a strong olfactory memory, it can be very powerful. Most of the time, it's quite a hard memory or reconstruction to get in touch with. But we may be able to get some sense of that, the smell of an orange. And then we could see ourselves in the mind's eye peeling the orange, or however we like to get inside an orange. And then we're going to taste the orange. So maybe we can get some, however faint perhaps, idea of memory of what an orange tastes like. Now we have involved the sensory memory, as it were, of all of our senses pretty much. Or notice this, notice whether this is something that's actually just at the moment going on in our heads. There might be some bodily correspondence. If you've got a really good memory or you really like oranges, you might be salivating at the moment. So what we're doing here is just taking a closer look at a mentally constructed experience. Just to finish, we can reflect on what's the difference between the mentally constructed orange and an actual orange. If we were live in the centre and I was feeling like a school teacher, I might have given you all an orange and you could bite into it at the moment and get the full impact of that difference. I'm afraid we're just going to have to do this in reflection. Okay, end of the exercise. So we'll maybe just have a couple of minutes if anybody wants to just, one or two people just comment on how that was.
That was, well, I saw Yasmin. Yasmin, did your hand go up there? Would you like to speak?
I was,
Have you got
felt,
orange?
I do. I felt like my imagined orange was really vivid because I've been eating a lot of oranges lately. And then I got an actual orange out and it's nowhere near as vivid as I thought. So, yeah, that was a really cool contrast. They're totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say more than that.
I like as evidence-based reporting back there.
Perhaps Yasmin brought it into being.
Were you going to say something, Taranita?
Yeah, I was. What I noticed first of all was, now I wondered whether this is just me, but when you said orange, and so you bring Tim's got an orange as well there, and and so I brought to mind, or an orange came to mind, but I noticed one thing was that it was the right way up, or what I consider to be the right way up. So you have the thing at the top, which I couldn't remember the name of. What's a thing called where the stalk attaches?
The thing where the stalk attaches.
Yeah, but it was the right way up. It didn't have to be that way up, but I put it the right, in my mind, it was the right way up. So I wondered whether other people had it the right way up as well.
Interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, does it? When they're in the bowl, they get way up.
Yeah. So yeah, there's levels to this mental constructing, isn't there?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah. But I did towards the end. I did really quite get into it, and I was on the verge of salivating. So
yeah,
I remember that, how nice oranges can be.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing, isn't it? It's the power of the mind, to almost, it seems sometimes, reproduce a living, actual thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think this is one of the reasons why it can be so incredibly seductive, can't it? I mean, the mind. It can create whole realities, which, as it does in dreams, for instance.
Yeah.
We're actually there, we think. Okay, thanks. Right, well, Let's do another exercise then. And this time, instead of imagining, we're going to look at the body. So, going to get a little bit more meditative. So again, whilst we're doing the exercise, see if at the same time we can kind of notice kind of what goes on in our experience. So go to the toe, the big toe of your left foot. Just notice what goes on after hearing that instruction. How is it we get to, as it were, the big toe of the left foot? And also what happens when we get there, as it were? What is the experience, as it were, of getting there? Okay, so let's go to the elbow of our right arm. Again, noticing what happens, how it is we get to the elbow of the right arm. And what, as it were, kind of happens when we're there. And one more for good measure. Let's go to our hands. So how is it we get attention to the hands? and what happens when we get there. Okay, it's the end of that exercise. So does anybody like to share what they noticed doing that?
Can I speak?
Yes, Darwin.
I was being a bit technical. I think that my brain, like a Ouija thing, knows where all the parts of my body are at any one time, approximately, and so I can sit here and name a knee or something, and I can get some idea where it is, and then generally using, because I've got my eyes shut, I could only use touch to get it, as with the big toe, the touch of on the ground and whatever.
Right.
So I'm using a very, it's very near to the orange database. It's a database in the brain that
Right.
brings these things into some sort of reality.
Yeah.
And even
Although we don't actually have an experience of the brain, do we?
no,
We're sort of saying this from sketchy knowledge of neuroscience or something, or the body. Yeah.
well, that was that's my awareness. I'm just reporting as me.
Yeah. But I suppose I was just maybe challenging a little bit whether it's awareness of the brain or whether something happens, like, okay, a thought arises that says toe.
And I think then that shuffles it in a file, as it were, and so brings up toe as opposed to ear or something.
Okay. And it's heard something like, go to the toe. And because of the meditative context, we know that means something like being aware of the toe, something like that.
And because of your posture, which comes into it, you know approximately where your toes are. If I was sat cross-legged, they'd be different to sat in this chair.
Sure.
So
I'm not saying necessarily where the toe is sort of spatially in the room, like a kind of, my toe is 3 foot from the left wall. I'm just talking about from within, the experience of the toe. Thanks, Tom. Any other sharings about, how you got to your toe, your elbow, and your hands?
Louis got his hand up, Naravira.
Louis, thank you.
Cheers. Yeah. One thing that I noticed straight away, and I couldn't stop from happening, is that my eyes wanted to kind of look in the direction of my toe, my elbow, my hands. And it felt like when, especially with the elbow, which felt like the kind of numbest area, my eyes would be kind of held looking in that direction. But when I sort of zoned out into thoughts, I realized that my eyes had gone elsewhere, or were kind of going into slight sleep mode where they kind of turn in on themselves in a weird way.
Yeah. So your eyes wanted to go there. It's interesting, isn't it? I think we rely on the visual sense quite a lot. But if we got our eyes closed, how is that?
They weren't actually looking at anything, but they just wanted, with my eyes closed, wanted to kind of go in the direction, downwards. Or
Yeah.
it felt like the way to make it possible to be kind of aware of that particular bit, which I'm sure doesn't always need to be the case. I think it's because my brain felt quite distracted, and that was a kind of a way of forcing it down, which is probably not the best way of doing it. It's just felt like the technique that worked.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Louis. So did anybody get the experience that in order to get to their big toe, they kind of visualized the body? All right, where's my big toe? Oh, okay. I'm up here. Big toe's down there. Okay, right. So down at the bottom of the leg. Ah, yeah, there's the big toe. Anybody do it that way? That's how I was doing it.
That's the Naravira base.
I definitely have that feeling of traveling to it
Traveling to it, yes.
internally, like, but
Yeah.
not in my trunk though, only like down my leg and down my arm.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Got a head start. Started at the legs.
was just like
Yeah. Yeah. And did you do that for the elbow and the hands as well, that you would travel there?
My hands, my thumbs, like my hands were disembodied, but the elbow and the toe, I was on
Right.
a journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm very aware that wasn't really able to concentrate because I'm watering two lots of people who are away. I'm watering their front gardens, and it's
Okay.
quite a lot of toing and froing with watering cans. So I need to leave. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, Jane.
Okay, but thank you very much.
Yeah. Happy watering.
Yes, yes, it's quite heavy.
A bit of exercise.
Yes, good. Okay, thanks very much.
Yeah. Okay. See you, Jane. Okay. So, well, I mean, make what you will of the exercise, but it's trying to demonstrate the difference between our mentally constructed version of things and our actual experience of it. So we go to the big toe. We often, make some mental way of getting to that experience. But then when we're actually at the experience, what do we experience? Do we experience this toe continually mentally, which we might do? We might be sort of just continually, our experience of the toe is that mental picture of the toe kind of held there, as it were. Or do we actually then sort of start to experience the toe, as it were, as the toe from the toe? Maitri Jyoti's nodding. I'm glad it's making sense to somebody. Maybe it's making sense to all of you, and you're just happy with that. Okay, so I mean, yeah, the purpose of this exercise, you could say, is to get some clarity on the difference between a mentally constructed experience and our direct experience of something. And so when it comes to meditation, for instance, with the mindfulness of breathing, by knowing the difference between those two things, we can, and knowing particularly, what it is to be in a direct experience of something, the direct sensate, in the case of the body, direct sensate experience of something, we can come much closer to the direct experience of it, which is the same as saying more aware. Okay, so it's about 22, so I hope that was of some use to you. I think what we can do is, let's just do a meditation to finish. Yeah. So if you want to set yourselves up for meditation, so again, if we can just let go of all what's just been said. One of the ways that we could talk about direct experience of the body is seeing the body from the body. So following on from the exercise that we just did, and another way of expressing it is when we see the body from the body, we're not looking down into the body from the head. And we're not looking up either from that experience of the body. For some sort of answer from the head. We're just in the body as the body. So awareness, this amazing ability to be mobile in this way. Attention can go to any part of our experience. So we'll do body awareness in this way. So start by unhooking from the thinking mind. We don't actually need it for this meditation. So you can just let go of it, just let it do whatever it's going to do. Allow attention to come out of the thinking mind and into the physical experience. So I quite like to do this by coming into the sensations of the head or face first, partly because of their physical proximity to where the head is. Where attention normally resides. Coming into the physical sensations as the physical sensations. So the jaw, so there may be some mental mapping in order to get to the jaw, or we may be able to just straight away pick up on the sensations in that area of the body. The lips, the eyes, So not the idea of the eyes, not the mental map of the eyes, but what is there in direct sensate experience corresponds with the word eyes. And coming down through the body to the neck and throat. Again, looking for the direct sensate experience. If we come to an area of the body and there doesn't seem to be much happening, you can just, as it were, allow attention to dwell in that area. A bit like when we come out of a brightly lit room into the dark outside, and it takes a while for our eyes to adjust, but there is light out there. You can start to see gradually as the eyes adjust more objects. So a bit like this, with awareness is hanging out in that place. And then going down to the upper chest. What do we actually experience in terms of the sensate body? Not the mind's idea, not the mental construction or the image, but the actual sensory experience. How does it appear in our awareness? Take in the area of the diaphragm, at the bottom of the rib cage. There can often be a lot going on in that part of the body. But unhooking from notions and thoughts and images and looking in that place for the direct sensate experience. And then going down to the lower abdomen. So that's the area of the abdomen below the navel. However we get there is fine, but once we're there, trying to unhook from any mental picture, etc., and pick up on the direct sensations. And we can go down further, go down to the what's called the pelvic floor, the perineum. So that's an area of skin between the buttocks. Sort of like a diamond shape. What can be useful if we don't experience much in a certain part of the body is to imagine ourselves breathing directly through that part of the body. So as if the air was coming in that place and going out in that place. So you can do this with the pelvic floor. Can actually feel quite grounding to breathe through the pelvic floor. But again, once we're there, unhooking from any mental construction that's helped us to get there, and looking for the direct sensate experience itself. So if we are experiencing the body as the body, we'll feel like we're not having to look down from the head or look up to the head. That we are aware directly from that place as that place. And you can either stay with the pelvic floor or with the lower abdomen. If we want to, we can allow awareness to spread out and take in the body as a whole. And by the body, of course, here mean the sensate body as it's actually being experienced in this moment. Noticing what that experience of the sensate body is like. When we think of the body, we tend to think of it as something with a kind of fixed outline, like a line drawing on a page. But is our experience of the body actually like that? What are sensations in themselves actually like? Do the sensations feel like something solid with a definite outline? Or do they appear as something more like a tingling, vibrational sense? Rather than being defined by a border, they're more like a cloud of sensations. I'm not taking my word for it, looking in your direct experience. If we had to draw the body as we're experiencing it now on a sheet of blank white paper, how would we draw it? What marks would we use to describe our experience of the moment of the sensate body? Does it appear as a body-shaped outline? Or is that more to do with our mental idea of what the body is supposed to look like and be like a solid object with a definite outline? Or in direct experience now, is it more like a cloud of dots on a sheet of white paper? Perhaps in some areas the dots are more close together, more intense as it were, and in some more dispersed with lots of space in between. I'm not getting lost in ideas about this. It's just a way of noticing what the direct sensative experience of the body is actually like. Okay, let's leave it there for tonight. Let's just end by reciting the transference of merit and self-surrender together. Thanks. So feel free to join in or not, as is your wish. May the merit gained in my acting thus go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. My personality throughout my existences, my possessions, and my merit in all three ways, I give up without regard to myself, for the benefit of all beings. Just as the earth and other elements are serviceable in many ways to the infinite number of beings inhabiting limitless space, so may I become that which maintains all beings, situated throughout space, so long as all have not attained to peace.